On June 8, 1903, in Brussels, a child was born into privilege and immediate loss. 10 days later, her mother, Fernande de Crancourt, died from complications of childbirth. The infant, named Marguerite, would grow up without any memory of the woman who brought her into the world. That absence marked her life quietly, but permanently. Raised by her father, Michel de Crancourt, in northern France, she received an unconventional and rigorous education at home. By the age of 12, she could read Latin and ancient Greek. Classical literature was not simply an academic study for her. It became a living presence. The ancient world felt closer than the modern one. In 1924, at 21, she visited the ruins of Hadrian's villa in Tivoli, near Rome. Walking through the remains of the vast imperial estate, she began imagining the inner life of the Roman Emperor Hadrian. Not the statue or the ruler, but the man approaching death. She began drafting a letter in his voice, addressed to his adopted successor, Marcus Aurelius. Dear Marcus. The project did not fully form. She wrote fragments, then set them aside. The pages were placed in a suitcase and forgotten as her life moved forward. Then history intervened. When Nazi forces advanced across Europe in 1939, Yourcenar, already an established writer, fled to the United States with her partner, Grace Frick. She left behind her home, her manuscripts, and most of her possessions. In America, she quietly rebuilt her life, teaching literature and art history to support herself. Europe was at war. Friends disappeared. The world she had known was shattered. Nearly a decade later, in December 1948, a suitcase arrived from Switzerland. Friends had safeguarded it before the war and had finally managed to send it. Inside were old drafts, photographs, and, among them, a manuscript. It was the letter to Marcus. Reading it again after more than 20 years, something shifted. She now understood the voice she had once tried to capture. The years of exile, war, and loss had given her a deeper sense of mortality and endurance. The fragments were no longer incomplete attempts. They were foundations. For 3 years, she worked with disciplined intensity. She studied historical sources, inscriptions, Roman philosophy, and medical practices of the 2nd century. But the power of the book would not lie in historical detail alone. It would lie in the voice of Hadrian, reflecting on power, love, grief, and the limits of empire. In 1951, she published Memoirs of Hadrian. The novel was immediately recognized as extraordinary. Written as a long letter from Hadrian to Marcus Aurelius, it presented the emperor as a thoughtful, aging man confronting illness and the meaning of his life. It was neither romanticized nor distant. It was intimate and unsentimental. The book became an international success and remains one of the most respected historical novels of the 20th century. Decades later, in 1980, Yourcenar achieved another historic milestone when she became the first woman elected to the Académie Française, an institution founded in 1635 that had excluded women for more than 3 centuries. Her election did not come from activism or demand, but from the undeniable weight of her work. She died in 1987 in Maine, far from the Brussels of her birth and the France she had once fled. The survival of that suitcase altered literary history. Had it been lost, Memoirs of Hadrian might never have been completed. The young woman who began the letter in 1924 did not yet possess the lived understanding required to finish it. The older writer, shaped by war and exile, did. The novel endures because it speaks calmly about mortality, responsibility, and the fragile beauty of human connection. It stands as proof that some works of art require time not just to be written, but to be lived into. The letter waited. When it returned, she was finally ready to answer it.